He was just there to fix a light. A garage light, to be exact, flickering for days, shorting out every time it rained. That's what brought Eli Turner, a 38-year-old electrician with steel-toed boots and calloused hands, to the quiet, upscale street in South Charlotte, where the driveways curve like invitations and the hedges never miss a trim. He wasn't new to this kind of neighborhood, just new to people noticing him in it. Eli didn't expect anything unusual that day. He parked his dusty old pickup next to a sleek silver Audi, grabbed his toolkit, and rang the bell like he'd done 100 times before. The woman who answered was in her early 30s, barefoot, wearing a soft blue dress that moved like water when she walked. Claire Whitmore. She introduced herself with a polite smile. "It's the garage light. Keeps blinking. It's driving me insane." Eli nodded. "I'll take a look." He followed her through a clean, minimalist home that smelled faintly of lavender and old books. Not opulent refined. Like someone with taste, not someone chasing trends. He didn't know yet that this would be the last routine job of his month. 20 minutes later, he was up on a small ladder, working quietly, efficiently. The problem was simple. Corroded wiring and a poor ground connection. Eli moved with practiced precision, the kind that doesn't draw attention because it doesn't need to, until, "You're handsome, you know that." The words hit the air like a switch flipping in his chest. Eli froze mid-turn, screwdriver still in his hand. He looked over his shoulder to find Claire leaning casually against the doorframe, arms crossed, expression unreadable. It wasn't flirtation. Not exactly. There was no wink, no playful smile, just a calm, direct observation, like she was saying something she'd noticed and decided not to keep to herself. He cleared his throat. Thanks." She didn't look away, just nodded slightly, like she was confirming a fact. Eli finished the job quickly after that. Replaced the bad wiring, secured the junction, checked the current. His hands were steady, but his mind wasn't. "I added a surge protector," he explained as he stepped down from the ladder. "Shouldn't give you trouble anymore." Claire tilted her head. "You always explain things like that? Calm, clear. Clarity matters, especially in someone else's home." That made her smile. Not a wide one, but genuine. Then came the second surprise. "You got time for lunch?" Eli blinked. "Lunch? There's a place 2 blocks down, Smoked Turkey Club, my treat." His first instinct was to say no. He always said no. That was one of his rules. Never mix personal and professional. Never blur the linear, especially, not in zip codes where people like him were only ever expected to fix things, not be invited in. "I've got another job," he said. Not a lie, but not the whole truth either. Claire didn't push. "Another time, maybe," she said. And then she did something else unexpected. Held out her hand. "Thank you, Eli." Her grip was firm, her palm warm. Not the soft, performative shake he was used to from wealthy clients. This was grounded. Real. He packed up his tools and walked out without looking back, but he felt her watching him. Not in a possessive way. In a present way. Like someone who was noticing more than just what he was fixing. Later that afternoon, Eli pulled into the driveway of his next client, a rundown ranch house with flaking paint and a sagging porch. He logged the job in his system, reached for his phone and froze. A message from an unknown number. Just a few words. "This is Claire. In case you change your mind." He didn't reply. He should have deleted it. But he didn't. Instead, that night, he lay awake in his small apartment above the barber shop, staring at the text until the words blurred. He wasn't a man given to fantasy. Raised by a single mother who could patch drywall as easily as she quoted scripture, Eli had learned early that the world didn't hand out kindness without a catch. So he let the message sit, and told himself to forget it. But he didn't. 3 days later, another message arrived. "Smoked Turkey Club still on the menu. Tomorrow at noon. I'll drive." Still not asking, just inviting. And something about that made it harder to say no. He stared at the screen in the middle of the hardware aisle, surrounded by power drills and fluorescent light buzz. Then, almost without thinking, he typed, "Okay, drop a pin." The next day she pulled into the lot of the hardware store in that same silver Audi. Barefoot again. Wearing a different blue dress. Something about the ease of her presence made Eli pause. "You always show up barefoot?" he asked as he climbed in. Claire laughed. "Only when I want to remind myself to stay grounded." They drove past brick buildings and strip malls, out toward the hills. No radio, no small talk, just the wind and the unspoken curiosity that danced between them. After 20 minutes, she pulled off onto a gravel road and into a wide clearing beneath tall pines. A narrow river curved in the distance. A single picnic table sat under an oak tree. She handed him a brown paper bag. "Turkey Club. Told you it was good." They ate mostly in silence, and for a long time, it wasn't awkward, just quiet, honest, like neither of them felt the need to prove anything. Then softly, Claire asked, "You think I'm weird?" Eli looked up. "Why?" "I asked a stranger to lunch, drove him into the woods barefoot." He smirked. "You're not weird, you're unexpected." She tilted her head. "That a compliment?" "It is if you've spent most of your life being ignored." That shut her up for a moment. Then, with a softer voice, "I don't ignore people." I noticed, and in that instant, something shifted, like a current of understanding had passed between them. Not love, not even attraction necessarily, but recognition. Eli Turner wasn't a man who second-guessed decisions. But that night, after the picnic, he caught himself walking slower to his truck, like leaving too quickly might erase something sacred. He didn't text Claire, didn't call, but he replayed their conversation in his head, especially that one question, "Do you think I'm weird?" Because in her voice, he heard something most people missed: a woman used to being watched, not seen. 3 days passed. Eli buried himself in work, outlet replacements, breaker panels. He even spent 5 hours rewiring a colonial house that hadn't seen an electrician since the Reagan era. His boots were heavy, his hands busier than usual, but the silence between him and Claire rang louder than any drill. Then, Friday morning, a new message popped up. "Dinner, my place, nothing fancy, 7 p.m., don't wear your boots." Eli stared at it for a long time. There was no emoji, no exclamation mark, just a sentence so disarming. It could only come from someone who knew her own mind. He showed up anyway with the boots on. Claire opened the door in leggings and a soft cardigan. No makeup, hair tied back in a way that let strands fall where they pleased. He held up a brown paper bag. "Honey cornbread, store-bought. I warmed it though." She laughed. "That might be the most southern thing I've heard all week." The house smelled like roasted salmon and rosemary. 2 plates were already set on the kitchen island. Candles lit. No show. Just presence. "I hope you like salmon," she said. "I like anything I didn't have to cook." They talked as they ate. About work. Bad clients. That one time Eli got stuck under a house for 3 hours because a raccoon refused to move. Claire laughed so hard, she nearly dropped her fork. At one point, she looked at him quietly and said, "You have a quiet way of being loud." Eli blinked. "Is that good?" "It's rare." He didn't know how to respond to that, so he didn't. But something in him unfolded. After dinner they moved to the couch. Eli sat carefully at one end, posture tight. Claire curled into the opposite corner like the house was an old friend. "You don't have to sit like you're in church," she teased. He shrugged. "I wasn't raised to slouch in a woman's house." She rolled her eyes. "You're allowed to be comfortable, especially here." And for the first time, the space between them didn't feel like air. It felt like a choice. Claire stared out the window. "You ever wonder what people say about us?" Eli turned toward her slowly. "Us? You? Me? This?" He exhaled. "Probably a lot. Probably none of it good." She nodded. "My world's loud. Not just in sound, expectations, image, control. People don't stay quiet about things that don't make sense to them." "I don't aim to make sense," he replied, "but I also don't ask permission to exist." She looked at him, something proud flickering in her gaze. "That's what scares them. And you?" "I don't scare easy." They didn't kiss that night. Didn't even hug. But when he left, she said, "You still owe me sandwiches." And he replied, "Next time, I'll even toast them." The next morning, Eli went to his usual diner. He liked the window seat, the one with the crooked blind that let in just enough sun. Coffee, grits, a little peace. Until 2 men in the booth behind him started talking. "Isn't that the guy with the rich white woman?" Eli stiffened. "He's just her project," the other one muttered. They weren't even whispering. Eli didn't turn around, didn't speak. But something in him shifted. It wasn't just the words. It was the ease with which they said them. Like no matter who he was, all they saw was a role, the charity case, the exception. Monday came. Early, loud, unforgiving. Eli drowned himself in work, a faulty ground wire in Matthews, a panel reset in Monroe. One entire day spent crawling through attic dust to fix a bad neutral wire. But even exhaustion couldn't silence the voice that echoed in his head. He's just her project. Tuesday morning, his boss pulled him aside. You hear about the Simons account? Eli blinked. No, sir. Why? They pulled out. What? I haven't even worked that property in weeks. His boss scratched his head. They said it's about public image, said they saw something online. Eli felt his stomach drop. What kind of something? The man shrugged. No idea. You do something I should know about? It wasn't an accusation, but it felt like one. No, Eli said. I've just been doing my job. Well, let's keep it that way. That night, Eli didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of his bed, phone in hand, thumb hovering over Claire's name. He could have told her everything, the comments, the contract, the wait. But he didn't. Because part of him still thought maybe if he just stayed quiet, the noise would go away. It didn't. Wednesday evening, Claire called. You free? Eli hesitated. Define free. I'm sitting on my front steps with 2 milkshakes and no one to share them with. He smiled, despite himself. You bought 2 on purpose, didn't you? No comment. Come over. 15 minutes later, he was sitting beside her on the steps. She handed him one of the cups. Chocolate peanut butter. I figured you for a classic. You were right. They drank in silence for a moment. Then Claire asked quietly, Did someone say something to you? Eli didn't answer right away. I heard something, he admitted. At the diner, a guy said I was your project. Claire exhaled sharply. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize for what other people say. I do when they say it because of me. He turned to her. It's not your fault I don't fit into their world. Her voice was firmer now. You fit into mine. A long pause. Then Eli said, I lost a client. Claire's eyes sharpened. Because of me? Because of us. A beat passed, then another. Then maybe we take a break, Eli said softly. Claire's voice trembled not with fear, but restraint. From each other? Number from the noise. She nodded slowly. If that's what you need. He didn't want to leave, but he did. That night, the porch light stayed on longer than usual. And Eli knew the storm wasn't coming. It had already started. Rain fell steady that Thursday afternoon, streaking Eli's windshield like silver threads. He hadn't moved from the driver's seat in over 15 minutes. 5 days. That's how long it had been since he asked Claire for space. 4 nights of half sleep. 3 missed calls from her. And 1 aching truth he could no longer ignore. He missed her. Not the way she looked. Not even the way she spoke. But the way she saw him. Like he was more than someone useful. More than someone passing through. He didn't call. He didn't text. He drove. Her house stood just like he remembered, wide porch, warm lights, wind chimes dancing in the drizzle. But something was different. No music. No shadow behind the curtains. Still, he knocked. The door opened, and there she was. Hoodie smeared with paint. Hair loose. No surprise in her face. Just something quiet and worn. Like she'd been waiting without hoping. Hey, he said. Claire folded her arms. You came from 4th Street. Eli smirked. Okay, maybe I wasn't just in the neighborhood. She stepped aside. You coming in, or just checking my humidity levels? Inside smelled like acrylic and espresso. Canvases leaned against the walls. One sat on the easel, half-finished deep strokes of blue tangled with streaks of red and black. Stormy. Alive. You did this? Eli asked, nodding toward the painting. She nodded. Therapy. You ever plan to show these? Number. They're not for anyone but me. He stared at the canvas for a long time. They looked like they've been waiting to exist. Claire didn't say anything. Just slid to the floor by the window, knees pulled to her chest. When I was 14, she began, a teacher told me I had talent, then told me not to waste it on urban angst. That was her exact term. Urban. Eli sat opposite her. My guidance counselor told me to skip college. Said you're good with your hands, Eli. That's enough. They both laughed, but it was a hollow kind of laugh. I didn't come here to dredge up the past, he said softly. Then why did you come? He hesitated. Because I'm tired of pretending that playing it safe is the same thing as peace. And because I don't think this, he gestured between them, is noise. Claire tilted her head. Then what is it? It's real, rare, and terrifying. A beat. Then she whispered, "Same." They sat in that quiet for a while, letting the rain fill the spaces words couldn't reach. Then Claire stood and pulled a slim folder from the bookshelf. She handed it to Eli without explanation. Inside were screenshots, social media posts, blog comments, blurry paparazzi photos of them at the park. One had a caption, "Is he dating up or being used?" He flipped the pages slowly. Some were mocking, some were cruel, all were invasive. "You've been dealing with this the whole time?" he asked. Claire nodded. "Since the first picture got out. You should have told me. I didn't want to scare you off. You think I scare easy?" She gave him a look. "You asked for space, Eli. I thought you were already gone." He looked down at the folder. "I thought space would protect us, but all it did was remind me that there's no safe distance from judgment." "No," Claire agreed, "but there's strength in being close." He looked at her, steady, tired, certain. "I'm here, and I'm done hiding." Claire moved closer, her knees brushing his. "I can't promise it'll get easier," she said. "I don't want easier. I want truth." She reached out, her fingers intertwining with his. "Then let's build from here." That weekend, Claire sent a letter. Not a private one. An open letter to the Charlotte Ledger, one of the city's most respected publications. She didn't name names. She didn't have to. The title said it all. "When We Love, Outside the Lines." The piece was bold, vulnerable, and sharp like a scalpel. "Some will see what I've built with Eli Turner as rebellion. But rebellion implies destruction. What we're doing is construction. Of equity. Of presence. Of partnership. And if that makes you uncomfortable, ask yourself why." By noon, the article had been shared over 2,000 times. Local church leaders posted it. Artists reposted it. A retired judge even emailed Claire to say, "You said what many of us have been too quiet to say." Eli didn't post anything. Didn't comment. But support came anyway. Messages from former clients. A note from a veteran who said, "My granddaughter showed me the article. I haven't cried in 10 years. I did today." And then, among all the encouragement, came another email. Subject, "Future Services with Carter Electric." From the Hargrove Estate. "Thank you for your work. At this time, we'll be seeking services elsewhere." No explanation, just the end of another account. Eli read it, then turned to Claire, who was brushing paint into a fresh canvas. "We just lost a client," he said. Claire looked up, unbothered. "We'll gain 10 more. That evening, they stood on the rooftop of Claire's studio, looking out at the city. Same buildings, same skyline, but everything felt different. "You know what that guy at the diner said?" Eli asked. "What?" "That I was just your project." She didn't flinch. "And what do you say?" "I say, then let's outlast them." Claire smiled. Small, certain. And in that moment, under a sky the color of promise, the line between them and the world blurred. Not because the world had changed, but because they no longer asked it for permission. Spring rolled in fast and wild. Rain lashed Charlotte streets 5 days in a row. Low neighborhoods flooded. Power outages swept across half the city. For Eli Turner, that meant 16-hour days, crawling under wet foundations, resetting blown panels, fixing fridges before single mothers lost a week's worth of groceries. He didn't complain. That's not who he was. But on the 6th day, the storm found him. It started with a text from Devon, one of his apprentices. "Boss, have you seen the article?" Eli frowned. "What article?" Then 3 more messages buzzed through, all with the same headline. "Community Hero, or Social Climber. The Curious Rise of Eli Turner, under Claire Whitmore's wing." He clicked one. A conservative local blog, loaded with implications and half-truths. Photos of Eli and Claire at the park. Twisted quotes from Claire's open letter. Even a blurred image of Eli helping an elderly client with the caption, "Marketing or manipulation." He didn't finish it. Didn't need to. The message was clear. You're not real. You're a symbol, a strategy. Eli shut off his phone and drove. Claire was in her back studio, barefoot, hoodie smudged with paint. She saw his face and didn't ask what was wrong. She just said, "It's out, isn't it?" He nodded. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You didn't write it. But I invited the light." Eli sat down, elbows on his knees, breathing hard. "They didn't come for us, Claire. They came for me. They turned this thing we built into a punchline." "No," she said, stepping closer. "They tried, but we're still standing. He looked at Harry's jaw tight, his eyes tired. But can we survive this? A long silence. Then, without flinching, Claire asked, "Do you want to stop?" It wasn't a trap. It was permission. Eli shook his head. "I used to think I could outwork judgment, that if I was useful enough, respectful enough, they'd let me in the room. But the truth is..." He paused. "They were never planning to let me stay." Claire sat beside him. "And what do you represent now?" she asked. He looked at her. No hesitation. "Disruption." A small laugh escaped her lips. "Then you're not the only one." They sat like that, shoulder to shoulder, until her phone buzzed. She handed it to him. An email. Subject: Interview invitation. NPR Charlotte. The message was short. "We'd love to feature you both in a segment about partnership, purpose, and community leadership." Eli stared at the screen. "You think this helps?" Claire didn't answer. She just smiled. The interview aired the next week. 15 minutes. A quiet, steady conversation, recorded in Claire's studio. Eli spoke plainly. "I'm not interested in being anyone's headline. I just want to build things that don't fall apart when storms hit, and I found someone who holds the same blueprint." When the host asked Claire what it meant to build with someone who didn't come from her world, she replied, "We build with what we have." Eli brought the hands. I brought the room. Now it's ours. The backlash didn't disappear, but it got drowned out by handwritten notes from elders, by messages from young couples navigating their own cross-world love, by phone calls from clients who said, "Your work spoke louder than their noise." One Thursday afternoon, Eli stood outside a modest 2-story house on Belmont Avenue. White siding, red door, faint smell of primer still on the walls. But it was theirs. Inside, Claire was sketching on the living room wall, barefoot as always. "What are you drawing?" he asked. "A mural." "Of what?" "Not sure yet," she said, smiling, "but I think it starts with hands." 2 weeks later, they held a dedication not for the house, but for the new space. A converted brick storefront on the edge of the city. One side, shelves of tools, diagrams, cables. The other, canvases, brushes, and long tables where neighborhood kids came to paint every Saturday. On the glass door, in simple wood letters, the Whitmore and Turner studio. That day, people came. Old clients, curious neighbors, teachers, artists. Devon's grandmother brought lemon pound cake wrapped in wax paper. And when the mic was passed to Claire, she didn't read a speech. She just said, "There's a difference between being given something and being trusted to build it. We built this space plank by plank, with risk, with truth. And if the world asks us to choose between love and peace, between truth and safety, we choose each other." Again and again. The room fell still. Then came the applause, not loud, but real. When Eli stepped up, he looked at the crowd. Old men wiping their eyes. Children twirling in the leaves. Claire watching him like he held something worth protecting. "I used to think the only thing I'd ever own was a toolbox," he said. "Turns out I get to carry something heavier." He paused. Hope. That night, back on their porch, wrapped in one blanket, they watched wind pull gold from the trees. Eli whispered, "I still can't believe this." Claire leaned into him. "Then let me remind you," she said. "We didn't just survive, Eli. We built." And in the quiet glow of a city that once tried to split them in two people stood side by side, note as a statement, not as a project, but as proof that something better can be made from the ruins. Something lasting. Something theirs.